Good night, everyone.
On World News Tonight this Tuesday, why it's so difficult to find John F. Kennedy's plane. Who's going to win the political fight about cutting taxes? And how much do the voters care? In Yugoslavia, what looks like an environmental disaster caused by NATO's bombing. 30 years ago today, one giant leap for mankind, and nothing like it since. We'll take a closer look at what the engineers say is possible.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. It's rather difficult to tell this evening whether the Coast Guard and the Navy are making any serious progress in their search for John F. Kennedy Jr.'s plane. The Coast Guard and the National Transportation Safety Board are very cautious in their reporting this evening. They warned at the outset that it might be slow going. We're going to go first to ABC's Lisa Stark, who is in Massachusetts. Lisa, I think some members of the public are frustrated at the pace. Are the investigators frustrated?
Well, Peter, these are professionals, and they know how tough it can be to find wreckage like this. Even though they have a fairly defined search area, this is a very small plane, and it's a very large ocean. So they will keep at this as long as necessary, weeks if need be.
Searchers believe they now have a much more accurate picture of where the wreckage may be, based on additional analysis of radar data. Still, they have not yet recovered any underwater pieces of wreckage, despite numerous dives today by both the Navy and state police. They still believe there are two very promising locations, and divers will continue as long as possible this evening to go down and take a look. But divers are operating under very tough conditions.
What they're facing essentially on the bottom is a water temperature of around 52 degrees. The visibility is less than 8 feet, and there is a significant current that they're fighting against.
Most of the wreckage recovered in the first 3 days of searching was found in the surf or on shore, near the current search area. Part of it on Philbin Beach on the southwestern part of the island. And just to the south, a source confirms that the plane's registration papers washed ashore on Saturday on property owned by John Kennedy Jr. and his sister. Last Friday's fatal flight was apparently the second plane trip that week for JFK Jr. He reportedly took his Piper Saratoga to Toronto for business on Monday. Kennedy was on crutches with a broken ankle and a cast. So when he flew to Canada, he took a flight instructor with him as a precaution. By Friday, the cast was off, and Kennedy decided to fly the plane by himself.
Now, we have more details tonight also based on more analysis of radar data about the fatal plunge to the water, which investigators say now occurred at about 5,000 feet per minute. Just before that dive, Kennedy descended to about 2,300 feet. He then apparently began a turn to the right and went back up slightly. Then he began another turn to the right, and that is when the dive began, a rapid dive. The lead investigator, Robert Pierce, was asked whether this was the sign of a confused pilot. He said he could not venture an opinion, but he did say at that point the plane was no longer heading toward Martha's Vineyard. Peter?
Thanks, Lisa. Lisa Stark in Massachusetts. Very careful investigators in every case tonight. The search of wreckage, or the search for wreckage on the ocean floor, is a painstaking process, as Lisa makes clear. The key is sonar. ABC's Bill Blakemore tonight on what that really means.
Most of the ocean floor in the search area off Martha's Vineyard is only 80 to 105 feet down, but it's littered with objects, everything from old shipwrecks to boulders. To help distinguish these objects from the wreckage, the searchers are using two kinds of sonar. The first is transmitted from surface ships. This gives a general view, but not much detail. It's for closer looks that they use the side-scanning sonar, which sends signals from a pod towed underwater, closer to the sea floor. But side-scan sonar images are still hard to make out.
They're definitely not at all like visual imagery. At 20 to 30 targets a minute, there's going to be an awful lot of work going into identifying possibilities.
Wreckage in pieces spread out in a debris field makes identification even harder. Ironically, the fact that the search area is in relatively shallow water makes it more difficult to find objects on the sea floor. Since the sonar from the surface ships looks down through an angle of about 90 degrees, the closer to the bottom, the less it can see, like a flashlight shining on a wall.
The closer you are, the smaller the spot that the flashlight is illuminating. That's exactly the situation you have with sonar in the water.
There is one advantage to the relatively shallow water. When they do find objects of interest, scuba divers can get to them quickly to check them out, even though there may still be difficulty when the underwater visibility is limited. Bill Blakemore, ABC News, Hyannis, Massachusetts.
The Kennedy family is trying as best as it can to have some privacy. It isn't easy. On New York's Long Island, Caroline Kennedy and her husband knew that even a short bike ride would be recorded, but it isn't easy to be cooped up under any circumstances. In a moment, we'll go on to the other news when trade is a vigorous two-way street, looking to the north and to the south. And the rocket scientists with the grand ideas, if only they had the money.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by Advil.
This is really something. You see this pain reliever? Nothing is proven to work better or last longer. Nothing. You see this one? For 14 years, people have counted on this for relief, and it's gentle on the stomach. And you may be surprised to learn that both are Advil. It's true. Nothing's proven to work better or longer than Advil. And millions of people can tell you it's gentle to the stomach. Strong, yet gentle. Advil.
Stop assuming that just because you're hugging one of these, you can't have a car that was made for hugging these. Alero, with the road hugging active response system. Start feeling connected. Alero by Oldsmobile. Start something.
With locations in over 1,800 cities and towns, there's always a Days Inn hotel nearby. Wherever you're going, wherever you're from. Days Inn. There you go.
On Capitol Hill today, Republican leaders are trying to decide whether they have as popular a political issue in cutting taxes as they like to think they have. The conventional wisdom has always been that supporting tax cuts is a no-lose proposition. But ABC's Linda Douglas reports this time that may not be the case.
Republicans have always believed that cutting taxes is their issue, and so it is again this year.
We're going to cut taxes by the most amount of taxes that have been cut in modern history.
The push for a tax cut does not come from the state of the economy.
The last thing, of course, an economy that's already very strong needs is a tax cut.
Bruce Steinberg and other economists worry that tax cuts will give consumers more money to spend, which might lead to higher inflation and prompt the Federal Reserve Board to raise interest rates.
And the economy would end up slowing down more than it probably needed to slow down.
And though voters think taxes are too high, they are not clamoring for a tax cut. Numerous polls show tax cuts rank low on their list of priorities, behind education, Medicare, and Social Security.
I think there's no better time than the present to start solving those problems with a surplus rather than a tax cut.
I think there needs to be some Social Security left for the youth of America when they retire.
But Republicans not only believe tax cuts are the defining issue of their party, they also see taxes as the one issue President Clinton has not yet commandeered.
Republicans believe that if they offer a significant tax cut, ultimately the president will not be able to steal that issue because his main priority are spending initiatives.
But now the president is also calling for a tax cut. So tomorrow, the House may consider a Republican proposal to cut taxes by $800 billion over 10 years, and possibly a Democratic alternative to cut taxes by less than half that. So voters may well get a tax cut, whether they want one or not. Linda Douglas, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
On the money tonight, another record for the trade deficit. In the month of May, the United States bought $21 billion more in product than it sold in product to the rest of the world. That's up nearly 15% from April. That is a very large trade deficit, and a growing share of it is across the country's northern and southern borders. Here's ABC's Betsy Stark.
Whether it's lumber, oil, or automobiles, so much of what is produced in Canada is now sold in the USA that the U.S. trade deficit with Canada now ranks behind only China and Japan. It's the same south of the border. From T-shirts to televisions, more than 85% of what's made in Mexico is bought by Americans. At this rate, analysts estimate the U.S. trade deficit with Canada and Mexico could reach a record $50 billion this year.
But while the prospect of the U.S. buying more than it sells alarms policymakers when it comes to China or Japan, not so when it comes to Mexico and Canada.
That's because trade across these borders is much more a two-way street, particularly since a free trade zone was created in 1994. The U.S., for example, buys a lot of Levi's jeans from Mexico, but it sells Mexico the cotton used to make the jeans. The U.S. buys cars from Canada, but it sells Canada the auto parts to make them. This arrangement has produced over $500 billion in two-way trade with Canada and Mexico, which is not the case with China.
Our trade with China is very much one way. We sell, in fact, very little to China, about $5 billion per month. On the other hand, we import quite a bit from China, about $25 billion per month.
Right now, the U.S. is importing more from just about everyone. And as long as American consumers have more money to spend than anyone else in the world, these trade gaps are likely to continue. Betsy Stark, ABC News, New York.
Still on the money, many investors in Wall Street were selling stocks to lock in their profits today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped more than 191 points to close at 10,996. On the NASDAQ, there was also a lot of profit-taking and some worries about slower growth at the big technology companies. Stocks there were down a fraction over 98 points. Here's an interesting example of the tight job market, a shortage of priests, ministers, and rabbis. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects that over the next 6 years, there will be an average of 7,000 job openings a year for clergy of all denominations. The world's highest oil field has been found in Tibet, more than 15,000 feet above sea level. The Chinese government, which has occupied Tibet for the past 40 years, says the field is commercially viable and could hold as much as 1 billion barrels of oil. In the mountains of southern France today, the American cyclist Lance Armstrong lost more than a minute of his lead in the Tour de France. Today it was a grueling climb in the Pyrenees Mountains, and Armstrong finished fourth. He still leads in the overall standings by more than 6 minutes. In a moment, the toxic aftermath of a NATO attack in Yugoslavia.
Itchy allergic rash? The dermatologist I work for recommends Cordate. It stops the itch and helps heal the rash to restore your skin. There's no brand doctors recommend more. In fact, doctors recommend Cordate more than 4 to 1 over Cortisone 10. Cordate, restore your skin.
A neglected septic system is like a time bomb under your house. Diffuse it with maintenance and advanced formula Rid-X septic treatment. It digests grease and paper and helps keep your system trouble-free. Diffuse that time bomb. Use Rid-X every month.
If you wear dentures, imagine how nervous teaching teenagers could make you feel. What if your dentures slipped? But thanks to the all-day hold of Super Polygrip, those days are over. I think that says a lot about the power of Polygrip.
Summer. Time to get busy with Red Lobster's 30 shrimp dinner for $9.99. 2 choices, 30 shrimp, $9.99. Escape to Red Lobster.
Wedding season is here, and isn't it nice to know there's one thing that will never let you down? Thompson's Wood Protector. For rain, sun, mildew, it's the most powerful Thompson's yet. You may now protect the deck. Thompson's Wood Protector. It never takes a day off.
When it comes to your health, never compromise, even when choosing a laxative. You need one that's strong enough to work overnight, but also gentle. Try doctor-recommended Dulcolax. Its comfort coating even protects your stomach. Get strong, get gentle, get doctor-recommended Dulcolax.
Hi, I have a question about buying stock. What's the difference between a market order and a limit order? Hello? Excuse me.
When you have an investment question, does your online brokerage have anybody there to answer it? We do.
In Yugoslavia, the war's poisonous legacy. United Nations experts are now in Yugoslavia to assess the environmental damage caused by 11 weeks of NATO bombing. The UN team began in the city of Pančevo today, taking soil samples for analysis. Locals call Pančevo the most toxic place in the country. ABC's Bill Redeker is there.
The city does not appear that badly damaged. But NATO's attack on Pančevo, recorded by a local television station, ripped apart an oil refinery, a petrochemical plant, a fertilizer factory, and it released a huge cloud of cancer-causing vinyl chloride, so dense that it blocked the sun for a day. The effects may be felt for years.
Direct damage.
Today, one of the managers of the complex said the attack also caused hundreds of tons of fuel oil and mercury to leak from storage tanks into the Danube River.
This discharge channel is a direct connection with the river Danube, and this is the way how Danube was directly polluted from here.
Toxic pollution on the Danube could damage other parts of Yugoslavia, as well as Romania and Bulgaria downstream. Examples of what people there may face. Eva Baratska says one of her sons, who suffers from asthma, now has daily attacks. Her other son complains of stomach cramps. The longer-term problems, according to scientists here and outside Yugoslavia, are likely to be much more serious.
We can expect the various malignant diseases, especially the breast cancer, lung cancer, some skin cancer.
In fact, no one here really knows just how contaminated their air, water, and soil has become, because until now there has been no independent assessment of the environmental damage that was created here. For now, only anecdotal accounts of painful blisters, headaches, stomach aches, and what visitors first notice here, the heavy smell of chemicals that still hangs over the area. Bill Redeker, ABC News, Pančevo, Yugoslavia.
Some signs of progress in Yugoslavia today. The government reopened the first bridge to be repaired since the NATO campaign ended. They worked very hard at it, but an enormous construction job remains. 48 more bridges to go. Health news today, a new contraceptive patch is in the final stages of testing. Johnson & Johnson says it works for women very much like the nicotine patch works. The drug to prevent pregnancy is absorbed through the skin. The company plans to file for approval early next year. In Los Angeles today, Kathleen Celaya, the former member of the Symbionese Liberation Army who was captured last month after 25 years on the run, has been released on $1 million bail. Friends put up the money. She'll be allowed to return to Minnesota, where authorities will keep tabs on her through an electronic monitoring system. At the Kennedy Space Center today, engineers are trying to determine why a computer malfunctioned, causing them to abort the launch of the Space Shuttle Columbia last night in just over 7 seconds before takeoff. Says 6, it was just more than 7. The computer detected a potentially dangerous buildup of hydrogen in the shuttle's engine compartment. Technicians are now preparing the shuttle for launch on Thursday. In a moment, by the way, why are astronauts still going to space the old-fashioned way? We'll take a closer look.
Nana, what are you doing up?
You try sleeping with all this heartburn.
But you took those Tums before I left.
Honey, I've been taking Tums since before you were born.
Nana, you could have stopped that heartburn before it started with Pepsid AC.
I do like eating your father's chili.
And you do like your sleep. So take one now. Pepsid AC controls acid all night.
Say, you ladies haven't finished all my chili. Oh, yeah.
Start sleeping heartburn-free with Pepsid AC.
There's nutrition news about heart disease. The B vitamin folic acid may help reduce homocysteine levels in the blood, an emerging risk factor for heart disease. And Centrum Silver has folic acid.
Centrum Silver. It's a great time to be silver. To be the best takes strength, speed, endurance. Now the best way to cure athlete's foot has it all. New Lamisil AT. Strength. Full prescription strength to stop the itching and burning. Speed. These take 4 weeks of treatment to kill the fungus. Only Lamisil AT cures athlete's foot with just 1 week's use. Endurance. A study showed most users were still athlete's foot free 3 whole months later. Get it all in new Lamisil AT, the best way to cure athlete's foot.
When you buy a bargain basement PC, what you're really buying is a mystery box. Will there be a monitor? Probably not. Lots of software? Ha! A year on the internet, 24/7 tech support? Dream on. With a Gateway Essential PC, you know exactly what you're getting. Monitor, great software, award-winning tech support, and internet access for $28 a month, or less than $1 a day. No mystery there. Call 1-800-GATEWAY for a Gateway Essential PC with an Intel Celeron processor.
Do you need fast allergy relief? Then you need the power of Zyrtec. Prescription Zyrtec starts working fast and lasts 24 hours. In studies, drowsiness was the most common side effect. Others included fatigue and dry mouth. Most were mild or moderate. To learn more about Zyrtec, ask your doctor or pharmacist. So when you need fast allergy relief, remember the power of Zyrtec.
Well, it's a big anniversary in the American space program, as you may know. 30 years ago today, Neil Armstrong was the first man to walk on the moon. Today, Mr. Armstrong and fellow astronauts Michael Collins and Buzz Aldrin were given an Achievement Award from the Smithsonian Institution in Washington. Vice President, in fact, they all look great. Consider this. 3 decades after the Apollo 11 triumph, NASA is still launching astronauts into space the way they have for years. Not a question of know-how. ABC's Ned Potter takes a closer look tonight at the way we go into space, then and now.
The moon was a giant leap for mankind.
Left off and the clock is started. 0, 1, 2. We choose to go to the moon.
3, 2, 1, 0.
In those heady days, the mandate was to try something, try anything. If it worked, great. If it failed, try something else. Just reach the goal, and then they hoped, move on.
But we haven't moved on, and Homer Hickam, longtime NASA engineer, now turned writer, says if we want to, we'll need rockets far more advanced than what we have now.
The big bad rockets that I'm talking about building use such energy sources as fission, or fusion, or even antimatter. And I know that that sounds like Star Trek and Star Wars and all that kind of thing, but it's real.
In fact, at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, they're already at work on the next generation. Engineers here talk without flinching of robot ships that can go to the next star. How to get enough power? Instead of burning fuel as rockets do now, how about nuclear fusion, combining atoms in the same process that powered the hydrogen bomb?
This type of technology would give you basically fuel efficiencies of about a factor of 100 better than that of chemical rocket technology, even better than that, possibly.
If that works, a ship could jet you from Earth to Mars in a matter of weeks. Today's probes must conserve their fuel so carefully that the trip takes almost a year. Engineers dream of space planes propelled toward orbital speed by a long track of high-powered magnets. They even look to the sun's rays. Perhaps the pressure of the photons in them can be harnessed to propel a craft through space.
If you're willing to pay the price, you can practically do anything.
But here's the reality. Since the days of Apollo, the NASA budget has been cut by almost 2/3.
Thanks for the ride.
And advanced rockets get only 3% of what remains.
As long as you see us keep flying the space shuttle over and over again and building the International Space Station, you know that we're really not serious about conquering space.
The moon was a giant leap. There's been nothing like it since. Ned Potter, ABC News, Huntsville, Alabama.
Just one other item about space tonight. Speaking of the past, the Mercury capsule that carried astronaut Gus Grissom into a suborbital flight 38 years ago has finally been pulled up from the Atlantic Ocean today, 300 miles southeast of Cape Canaveral. It sank shortly after he landed in the ocean. Space enthusiasts have always wanted to know if the hatch blew too early because of a mechanical fault, thereby sinking it, or if Mr. Grissom himself, the late Gus Grissom, sad to say, caused the problem. We'll be back in just a moment with the photographer.
Chevy Tahoe. Like a rock.
Great meal.
Uh-oh, gas pressure. What now? What else? Gas-X, with the most powerful medicine for fast relief. Nothing works faster.
Hey, want to go for ice cream?
Gas-X, the power to fight gas fast.
Spray and Wash Advanced Stain Care penetrates faster than Shout and powers out those dirty sweat stains. So you can...
Let them go. Let them play. Let them go with Spray and Wash.
If you're one of the 36 million people who wear dentures, this is big. New 5-Minute Polydent cleans stains, then forms an invisible PolyShield barrier so you feel fresh all day. 5-Minute Polydent with PolyShield.
With Days Inn hotels in over 1,800 cities and towns, finding a place to stay doesn't take a federal investigation. Days Inn, there you go.
Glenn Hall PI knows how to work the bad guy.
You promised to have sex with the kidnapper if he'd tell you where he was.
I give amazing phone.
From the creator of The Practice and Ally McBeal comes David E. Kelly's Snoops, ABC Sundays this fall.
A final note this evening about a photographer. The country is divided about photographers this week. Grant you, it's pretty divided about the media in general. But some of the country thinks that photographers are pushing so hard they're invading the Kennedys' privacy. Others are fascinated with the intimacies of life that a candid photograph reveals. These pictures were taken by a photographer who pleased the Kennedys, even as he captured very intimate moments that would become part of history. They have stirred the emotions of 2 generations now. President Kennedy and his young son taking a break in the Oval Office only a month before the president was killed in 1963. John Jr. is almost 3 as he peeks at the camera from under his father's desk. The magic of these Tretic pictures may help explain why the fascination with the Kennedys continues and is likely to continue. Here is the young president and his young son, frozen in time. Stanley Tretic, who took the pictures, died yesterday. He was 77. That's our report on World News Tonight. On Nightline this evening, 30 years later, the astronaut Buzz Aldrin reflects on the first lunar landing. I'm Peter Jennings. See you tomorrow. Good night.
Tomorrow, are the suburbs hurting your kids? Why some communities may be causing more harm than good. Watch ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. ABCnews.com, now a part of the GO Network.